Rolling right along. Once a month, we do a little segment called On the Air with HILLAR Moore, and our district attorney is in with us now. HILLAR, welcome back, man. How are you?
I'm great, Ron. How you making out, man?
Doing very well this morning. All right, you always bring great guests, so I'll let you set it up, and we'll take it from there.
I think our guest has been here maybe once before or maybe twice, John Daly.
Been a minute.
John's the CPA at the office, but he wears several hats. One is not only as the CPA to keep our books floating with others, making sure that we're straight, but he also runs all of our grants, and we have a lot of grants at the office, one of which deals with heroin, fentanyl, overdose. And also, as somewhat of a third hat, he also does outreach in the community with regard to opioid, fentanyl particularly. And so it's part of his job, but mainly his passion to help people to get them into recovery and away from addiction. He's very knowledgeable about fentanyl, opioids in Baton Rouge, the demographics, the statistics, and so he'll be a great bit of information today.
John, welcome back. How you been, man?
Doing well, thank you.
Glad to have you back on. Although the topic's never going, it feels like it's never going away, but that's not from a lack of effort. We'll get to the efforts in a minute. I want to start with the numbers. Bring on a CPA to talk numbers. This is going to be good.
There you
go. Let's talk numbers. Where are we at with opioid overdoses, fentanyl overdoses, and up, down? Where are we at?
In total, we've seen a decrease, approximately 3%. The last time I checked, it was about 301 confirmed, which is compared to last year down 3%, which was 311. So that's good news. Bad news is the percent of opioids, particularly fentanyl, in the toxicology has increased about 6%.
So with that, it's not so much that we're seeing. We have to say we've plateaued. I think it's still premature. But more and more of it is fentanyl. Is that a case of more and more people wanting fentanyl, or more and more people finding different uses or different ways to disguise fentanyl as something else or lace something else with fentanyl?
I would argue and both.
Okay.
And I'll speak candidly from my own lived experience as a recovered addict. I can tell you that it is a desirable drug if you are an opiate or opioid user. However, there are probably more accidental overdose deaths as a result of fentanyl currently, if I'm speculating.
Okay. I'd like to walk down that path a little bit. Why is it so desired? What makes this stuff so, I don't want to say great because it's killing people, but what makes this stuff so wanted?
Well, it's potent. So I can tell you, if you go back to the beginning, right, the 3 waves of the opioid crisis started with the doctor shopping and the pills, and then cracked down on that. People resorted to the street for heroin. Found out heroin was actually cheaper, more potent than fentanyl. Fentanyl is even more cheaper, even more potent. And so as a recovered addict, I can speak from experience, and that is I can get more bang for my buck with fentanyl.
Okay. As far as the, shall we say, experience, as far as the high, is it similar to heroin, or is it its own thing?
No, it's very similar.
Okay. All right. One of the things that continues to amaze is that as we look at supply and we fight supply, and that's all on the criminal justice side of fighting supply, demand never seems to taper. And how do we get at that? That's going to be the efforts that we're talking about here. But getting demand to taper is one of the parts that I think is so undervalued in the whole thing. Because if you reduce demand, supply won't be needed. They'll go look elsewhere.
That's right.
Demand,
supply, basic economics.
All right. Well, then let's walk through it from that perspective. What's going on right now to help reduce demand?
So currently, through efforts that we've been working on with community partners, like the When You Are Ready campaign, we're able to take the data that we get from our law enforcement partners, the coroner's office. We synthesize that into like heat maps and hot spots, and then we go out into the community with resources, particularly Narcan, fentanyl test strips. But most importantly is we have what we call push cards that has phone numbers for the detox and treatment, and we call it When You Are Ready for when you are ready to change. A person won't be willing to change until there's so much pain. So we go out into these hot spots, we share those resources, but we also share hope from our lived experience that there is another way of life. If you're interested, call one of these numbers and we can get you some help. We have found that to be very effective in several of our historically highest hotspots like 708, 16, 708, 15. In the past year, we saturated those areas with these resources, and we've actually seen a statistical decrease. However, we've seen the increase go up in other zip codes.
So 70815, 70816, and Hiller, I think you and I have talked about this before. By the way, District Attorney Hiller Moore, John Daly, our guest today, we're talking about the fentanyl crisis. We may have talked about this before in terms of homicides.
Correct.
The homicides are following the drugs.
Right.
The drugs are following the interstates. So 70816, I mean, you could look at 70816 and find Episcopal High. You can also find the exit of I-12 at Airline.
That's it.
So it's focusing in on those hot spots.
It's focusing on those hot spots, and you're exactly right. They're actually congregated around those in major intersections like I-12 Airline, I-12 Sherwood, I-10 Riga Road, Segan, because there are those hotel motels. And so focusing on those hot spots, we're able to get those resources into the areas of most need. However, we are still seeing, like I said, the increases go up in other zip codes that aren't those traditional hot spots.
Okay. That's going to bring me around to, if we're talking about the where, we can talk about the who. You got to have the demographics behind this. You were saying something before we went on that I found very intriguing. I didn't think there were demographics because you find fentanyl laced into so many other things that if the spread of fentanyl is so wide, then the number of people that are finding themselves with fentanyl it has got to be just as wide. But you had some pretty good numbers for me.
Yeah, so in 2022, the largest increase was actually young people. So the majority of our overdoses, people 40 and under. The largest increases, ages 25 and under. Particularly, it was the white female, aged 18 to 25 population, saw the largest percent increase.
Right.
But the actual largest proportion of fatal overdoses was black males, aged 26 through 39. In fact, for the first time in East Baton Rouge history, I believe the black population consisted of about 53, the majority of fatal overdoses, 53%. And so we're seeing, we started a campaign a while back called Ain't Nobody Safe, right? And that is because we're trying to emphasize the point that there is fentanyl in everything. And so the demographics, no one's safe. We're seeing that now with the numbers, with the changes in demographics as a result of the fentanyl.
I want to pause for just a moment and I bring this up every time we talk fentanyl. The fentanyl that's on the streets is not the fentanyl that's in the hospital. That's not the fentanyl that comes from a doctor's office. This is
correct.
It's borderline poison. If it is poison. So when you say no one is safe, yeah, this stuff will kill you in very small doses.
Correct. Absolutely. That's absolutely true. You have the fentanyl that's in the hospitals, and you have the illicitly manufactured fentanyl.
Right.
And that's the stuff you get on the streets. Unless you're a physicist or a pharmacist, you don't know.
Well, yeah. We're not Walter White over here,
right.
So it just the ounce of precaution would be worth everything on the back end. John, I want to ask you about continuing some of those efforts and pick up more on the When You Are Ready program because we've talked about that before. I find it the motivation behind it the most fascinating.
Yeah, and what's most interesting, too, is when we started doing this, we were thinking that this is the obvious next step. Then we later found out that this is actually pretty innovative. No one really is doing this, not only in the state, but in the country. And so the motivation behind that is to get down to the root causes and conditions, right? Because I can tell you, again, speaking from experience, I never woke up and decided I wanted to destroy my life with drugs and alcohol. It ended up becoming a solution for me as a result of, adverse experiences I had, trauma. Right. And we all know trauma perpetuates more trauma and violence, but it also perpetuates addiction. And so I can tell you that the motive behind it is that I had the opportunity to get well. And so my passion has become to utilize my position and my access to things like the data to help others. The scariest thing is that when I got sober, fentanyl wasn't really a thing yet. Okay. Now people are they're being deprived of the opportunity to get that help.
Yeah. Yeah, but with When You're Ready, one of the biggest things when it comes to doing anything in life, whether that be quitting smoking, whether that be losing weight, whether that be kicking a drug habit, the person has to want to first.
Exactly.
So there was a lot of effort before When You're Ready in trying to make that pitch, trying to, I don't know if evangelize would be the right word, but like trying to talk the sense into them that they need the help, but that's got to come from within.
Exactly, exactly. You can, whether the old saying, you can lead the horse to water, you can't make it drink.
Right.
You can equip people with the facts, but it's gotta be a decision that they have to make for themselves.
What personal motivation as a recovering addict? Your personal motivation in this was there? Is there no fear of remaining close to it?
Actually, it's the opposite. It's going back to those front lines because the way I see it is, I've experienced most of my experience was in that darkness, and so being able to go back to it and speak that language of the heart and let people know that there's another way of life is it motivates me. It doesn't scare me.
Within the hotels, and Hiller and I have talked about this in the past as well. Within the hotels, the people that you're finding there, they're not necessarily from here, so makes follow up a little bit more difficult. Does that change your approach?
It does. And so we have some innovative solutions that we're currently working on designing and implementing, like meeting people where they're at, particularly in the hospitals or on the call outs to an overdose scene. So that way we can meet them where they are or their friends and family. And so that way we can equip them with the solutions on the spot. And that we call it the golden hour.
Okay. Okay. Well, awesome. Let's see that continue. In the meanwhile, we're going to be due up for a break here in just a minute. I want to shift, if we can, from that demand side to reducing the supply side and where the efforts are with that. But I don't want to squeeze you down before break. We're going to continue on Facebook Live as we get into the break. We've got Your Money Now coming your way in less than 60 seconds from right now. We'll check traffic one more time. We'll come back and close it out next. Hey, while I've got your attention and before we get to that break, let me remind you, the big game giveaway is going on right now at talk1073.com. Sign up now, presented by Citizens Bank and Trust. There's both a $2,000 prize and a $1,000 prize. Pick the right score to the big game, which is coming up this weekend. If your name is drawn and you pick the correct score, you will win the big prize over there at talk1073.com. And speaking of the game, Super Bowl is going to be right here on Talk 1073 FM. Our coverage will begin at 4 p.m. LSU women's basketball before that. Westwood One will be on the call, and we've got the Super Bowl for you this Sunday. Right now, here's Your Money Now on Talk 1073. All right, let's. So, are you as well versed on the enforcement end as the?
Yeah, and I would like Hiller to pitch in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Particularly as it relates to the law, because I'm not the attorney in the room. But I can talk about some of the efforts that we have been able to engage in, like bringing in the business community to fund certain, like we created a digital forensics unit because the importance of cell phones in fighting the supply side is paramount.
Start with that. I could do that if you wanted.
We don't want to go, I guess, like too
detail.
detailed, yeah, because it's like trade secrets.
No, yeah. We'll kill the mics for a second.
Sounds like a football coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
My focus is this team, this university.
Hey, remember when Nick Saban said he wasn't going to be the next coach of Alabama, and 2 weeks later he was the coach of Alabama?
I just always feel like any politician that's like, I'm focused on my post right now is definitely considered a run.
Yeah, that's confirmation.
It's all good.
I'm just kidding, Hiller.
Yeah, no. It's all good.
Yeah, well, Nick Saban went on record talking about how he regretted leaving LSU. Can you imagine how many natties LSU would have if he never left? Probably 10.
You think?
I think. He came on in 2003, right? So every other year.
He came here in 2000. one at
That's right.
03.
He left in 03. That's right.
Yeah, no, he left after 04. That
Oh, the
piece of
Iowa
shit.
bowl game.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that.
So what I wonder is, and I'm so cynical about our own fan base, would Nick Saban have brought us to greatness, or would we have ruined Nick Saban?
That's a good point.
That's like we have a lot of loudmouths with a lot of money who like to get their opinions in on things, and
That's a good point. Well, I don't know. I mean, if he kept winning natties,
yeah, and so I'm not counting that bowl game because he was mentally clocked out. He told the team on the way, "I'm leaving." So
yeah.
but I don't know if you hit a drop off and they run him out of town. Look, I know Ed Orgeron was a different scenario, but Ed Orgeron was gone 2 years, COVID years,
I know.
after the greatest season in the history of college football. Doesn't get a mulligan for a COVID season where you can't practice in the spring and you replace literally everybody.
But think about this, though. Maybe Nick Saban ruined the fan base. Because I remember growing up, crying because we would lose every weekend. That was my earliest memories with Jerry DiNardo, but I'm sure we sucked even before then.
Oh, we sucked way worse. DiNardo brought back the magic.
Yeah.
We sucked horribly under Curly Holman.
Okay, so there you go. I mean, so maybe it's the other way. Maybe Saban set such a high standard that we've been trying to, like, an ideal that we've been trying to live up to, and we're measuring everybody else to it,
Oh, spell your last name so that Alondra gets
Like
read on demand.
Daily News, Daily Bread, and it's Jon.
Jon.
Yeah, John without the H. Yeah.
And what title do you want on there? Or just with the district attorney's office, or?
Yeah, John Daly, CPA with the DA's office.
Cool.
Get that CPA in there for my side practice, hustle, marketing. Yeah, I do. I always get nervous when you put a mic in front of me because I do better speaking candidly. So
Yeah. You're
trying.
doing great.
I'm thinking, don't cuss.
Oh, look, in radio, that's all of us, all the time.
Oh, man.
How is Kenny Sears still coaching? He was my coach. Well, Harry Nunez was the head coach. Kenny was the defensive coordinator. Yeah, I saw that. I keep up with all the alumni stuff with Al Nastasi. Yeah. Really? That doesn't surprise me. He's up there. I saw when we played Catholic over at Memorial. I ran into Harry.
What school is it?
St. Paul's. So Rick Malden was my baseball coach. So yeah.
Playing college ball? What you doing now? Good choice. Why are you hanging out with him?
$8:56, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. One segment to go here on Mornings with Brian Haldane. Once a month, we check in with the district attorney's office, and we're doing that right now. HILLAR Moore, John Daly with us this morning, talking a little bit about the opioid crisis. All right, HILLAR, we've covered the demand end. Let's talk about the supply end. That's where law enforcement enters the equation in a big way.
So obviously, because of the demand, the supply is high.
Sure.
And so it seems like now everyone is a heroin fentanyl dealer. It used to be there was only one or two in the city, a few in the state. Now everyone deals that because everyone wants it.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot more difficult. And these dealers are also armed with semi-automatic, sometimes automatic weapons, as you and I have discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a dangerous business. So it makes it even harder for police.
So how does it change, or how does it change the approach by police?
I mean, you can only do so much with what you have, particularly with police being down 75%,
right.
75 officers in each division makes it even harder. The sheriff's office has really been making a whack in fentanyl, heroin with guns and violence.
Saw a story this morning about 3 people who were arrested. Came down from Seattle for a drug deal.
Making a ton of impact. And so we're working with the federal authorities, the DEA, FBI, U.S. Attorney, ATF on all of these cases, trying to make the best that we can.
Let's talk about those partnerships a little bit, because there's a lot of, I mean, yes, there's strength in numbers, but there's also intelligence in numbers and information gathering from around the country for best practices for how to utilize what other people have seen that we can put to work here.
So fortunately for us, we have a lot of really good business people that John and I have spoken with others that have put their money together to assist us in starting a digital forensic unit that is cell phones. Everyone does their business on cell phones.
Yeah.
And people that died overdose on fentanyl, they use their cell phone right before their death because it's the last phone call they make. So we try to seize the cell phones to see if we can get some commonality between those that are dying, those that are dealing, who is the dealer, and what kind of case can we make?
John, how vital is that?
Oh, it's of paramount importance. I think Pew Research showed that in most cases, digital evidence is like expected by a jury in like 98%, and like he said, anytime we show up on an overdose scene, the most vital piece of evidence is going to be a cell phone.
The digital forensics unit is in action right now. Guys, we are just about out of time. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, though, because the content, while it's heavy and it's not something we want to talk about, it's something we have to talk about until the problem gets better. In the meanwhile, he's been Hiller Moore and John Daly from Hiller's office talking about the opioid and fentanyl crisis. That is going to do it for us. Hey, stick around after the show. Love reminding you this. Moon Griffon's coming up next. We've got Moon from 9 till 11. Look, I didn't go heavy on the State of the Union, and that was on purpose. I guarantee you, Moon is going heavy on the State of the Union. After Moon, we got Brian Kilmeade, who is also going heavy on the State of the Union. That'll be followed by Dave Ramsey and then Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins on the way home. Don't forget, coming up Sunday, LSU versus South Carolina. LSU women's basketball is at South Carolina. We're your home for LSU women's basketball right here on Talk 107.3 FM. Tip-off is at 1 p.m. Pre-game, Patrick Wright on the call at 12:30. And, of course, that'll be followed by the Super Bowl. In the meanwhile, we got to get out of here. Stick around. Moon's coming your way after ABC News. Whoops.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Oh, no. Thank you all very much.
You good, love.
Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, and if you ever want like more detailed data on any of that stuff, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to see you, babe.
Facebook, we'll see y'all later. It's good meeting you, man.